it's another time when we get together. It's another time when we get to create the space and make it whatever it is that we want to create. So if we want to create it and for it to be, if you need some laughter, you need some healing, you need some peace, you need some happiness, you want to laugh, you want to cry, or everything else in between, that's what we do here. So in other words, we're not hiding from the hard stuff in life. Actually, my experience has been, and it's one of the things we're going to talk about today in the talk, is that by embracing the hard times, you have a tendency to get through them a little bit faster, just a little bit. But what's really helpful is when you can embrace the hard times and then have spiritual principles that help you. And that's what we do here at Unity. For those of you that are here for the first time, is that we believe that if you actually practice and use spiritual principles that we teach here at Unity, it's just a different way of living. How many people would agree with that, that once you start embracing with Unity, you just live differently? Why do you live differently? And I'm just going to share a few thoughts on this. And I used to not live that way. And when I did, what I found is that anytime something came up, it looked something like this. That's what it looked like. And what I have found is that when I start using spiritual principles on a regular basis, and I actually embody those principles and I actually live those principles, I don't feel like I'm so alone anymore. So in other words, my own life demonstrates to me and feels like to me is that I've actually got my best buddy God is hanging over here on my left shoulder with me all the time, whispering in my ears, telling me things like, you matter, you're not alone, we'll get through this, hang in there, help is on the way. And for me, that shifted everything. And it's not just a couple of thoughts, it's not just a couple of words. What we always say here in Unity is that it's actually doing exactly what Jesus did, which was to have an experience with God every single day. I say a lot of stuff up here, but I mean this with all my heart. If your experience does not include you feeling like and having the experience that you've got this thing called God with you, then I'm going to invite you into that possibility. Certainly, that's what all the masters talked about. Certainly, that's what Jesus talked about. Certainly, that's what Buddha talked about. Certainly, that's what they all talked about, was having the experience. And while, yes, at first, it requires some education. Yeah, you got to learn a few things. You got to do a few things. You got to start applying these principles. But eventually, you get to the point to where you take all of that and you set it down. And now you get to just have this lived experience. And I mean that with all my heart and all my soul, that you get to have a lived experience with God. That is completely different than give me more information, more information, more information, more information, more information. It's completely different. One is necessary, but don't stop there. Move into the phase of your life where all of a sudden this can become a lived experience. This is no different than any other skill set. I would imagine if I were to sit down and talk to John, as he spits up because I'm talking about him now, my belief is if I sat down and talked to John and said, John, what was it like when you first started playing the piano? He would probably say, oh, it was really clunky and I was just kind of banging on keys and didn't really know anything, couldn't feel anything, didn't understand everything. But then I'll bet you what he would say is, as I continued to play it, all of a sudden I started to embody the music and I started to become the music, and then I just let the music flow through me. Am I pretty close? Right? So then it becomes, there's no difference between John learning how to play the piano and you learning how to walk with God. And that's what I'm saying. It's time, there will come a time where it's like, get out of your head, put the books down, and live it. That's when it starts to become magical. That's when you start having these experiences. That's when you start feeling that God is with you every single step of your walk. And that's what the difference is.